Welcome back to The Numbers Game. I'm Jace. I'm here with Nick, and we don't have Marty joining us today. We have a special guest episode. Nick, why don't you tell us a bit about what's happening today?
Oh, well, firstly, I'll let you know why Marty's not here, because we had a deep conversation about this yesterday. But he has a new hairdresser, and that hairdresser is charging him $88 for a haircut. So we had a pretty deep conversation about it yesterday. He sent me a photo. I wanted to know if the extra $58 that he was paying was worth it. My immediate response was no. I think he was booked in there today too. So, given that it's $88, he hangs around, has a coffee, make sure he gets his value.
Gets his full value.
Yeah. So there you go, mate. So you'll be looking forward to seeing him next time. And I don't know, I'd be keen to see if you notice any changes. But moving on, yeah. So today we have Joel from PropApp. So PropApp, look, in transparency, Innovate's been doing some work with PropApp. We love what we're doing, or what they're doing. We think they're going to change the way that property is transacted in Australia, particularly in the way that vendors and purchasers deal with real estate agents. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get Joel on and tell us a little bit more about himself and PropApp. Joel, how are you, mate?
Super. Very excited to be here. Been looking forward to doing this with you boys. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, Joel. Well, Nick's given us a bit of a Nick's version of the elevator pitch. I'd love to know from your words, just as we get started, what is PropApp to you? Like how would you reel it off when you try and describe it to your mates at a barbecue?
We basically describe it as the app that we wish we had when we were in the property game, or personally trying to buy or sell property. So you'd be surprised to hear there's about 65,000 agents across Australia. And obviously there's not that many local to where you live. But the choice is still pretty sparse, and trying to decipher whether you're buying or selling, who the best person to connect to, isn't actually that straightforward. So we sort of felt like it should be. And so we sort of joke, we built the Tinder for real estate, and that's kind of how it is. You get a way to connect that you otherwise didn't have before. And so rather than admiring the problem, we set about to build it and build the solution. So that's PropApp.
I love any time that you can bring in, like, describing it as Uber, Tinder, OnlyFans, anything like that people can go, oh yeah, okay, cool. It's the Uber of this, or Airbnb. Sorry, did I say OnlyFans? Should Airbnb? Sorry, Nick.
It's not quite OnlyFans. That would be a bit awkward for us, but yeah.
In transparency, for anyone who did hear that slip up, OnlyFans is now available on the pre-fill reports for accountants. So if you go to get your tax done, just going to throw in a warning there as to why that word came out of my mouth. It's on the mind due to accountants now get OnlyFans data on a pre-fill report. To be discussed later. Sorry, Nick, back to you.
No, it's awesome. Look, it's obviously going to be a big part of your business moving forward, mate. So I understand how you'd want to plug the fact that you will look after OnlyFans people. So well done for getting that in.
Where's this going?
So Joel, I've got a yeah, I know, yeah. So Joel, I've got a really good understanding of what you guys do and logistically how that works. But maybe if you could just dig into the weeds a little bit, and because I think it's definitely worth explaining. Okay, if I'm a vendor or a purchaser, what is different, and what is my actual experience on PropApp compared to traditional methods such as realestate.com, ring a few agents, go through properties, or if you want to sell your property, have probably 3 or 4 agents come through your house and tell you what it's worth. How's the experience different, and what does it look like for someone going through PropApp?
Yeah, so I mean, traditionally, in before we existed, you would do just that. You'd pretty much try and work out, maybe by asking a mate, or you got a cousin or someone who sold the property but to you when you're looking to sell, and you'd sort of try and piece together that one, and it would be a little bit of potluck as to how you'd go on the day. But with PropApp, you don't have to do that, especially if you're, sort of like all of us, busy. You got kids, you're on the way to work, all the hustle and bustle, life's pretty noisy. On the app, you just jump on, you literally press a couple of buttons and tell us about the property. You get all the information for the best agents that we've gone and validated in advance, put on the app, they've signed up, they've shared all the information around their performance. And from there, you pretty much run like a localized tender. So a little bit like when you go to Hipages or Airtasker and you want to get a job done. So this is the same thing, except that in the real estate industry, you want to know which agent you should invite that's best for your property and your circumstances. And so that's pretty much it. That's what people do. So we had exactly that circumstance this morning. He jumped on the app, didn't know who to choose, and he ran the process.
So that's going to cover things like, okay, this is what I think your house is worth, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is what we charge from a fee point of view. This is your marketing costs. So it's almost like what we do with mortgage broking. I think we kind of vet the banks, take the bank to the client and say, hey, don't waste your time here. This is the bank you need to go to and this is why. So it's kind of similar to mortgage broking in a way.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, when people come to you, right, we obviously have mutual customers that we work with in common who look to you for trusted advice on the best finance options and where to go next in their circumstances. And in real estate, like who provides that current service? And there is no trusted advisor in that space. Sure, you can go to a vendor advocate in that sense, but we kind of provide that vendor advocacy in a self-service fashion. You jump on the app, it's your private account, it's your personal information that you have only to yourself, and it's sort of DIY. It's all there for you.
So this is buying and selling, just so I'm clear as well, because I think I in transparency signed up to the app as well and was very impressed, Joel, when I got a phone call. So is that part of the standard process as well? When somebody signs up to the app, they start punching in their details. At some point in the early part of their journey, there is a check-in call to talk them through. So you're dealing with a human as well, not just kind of using an app and not having any human intervention.
Yeah, correct. So we really wanted to make sure that people that jump on the app understand that there's a local presence and that there's a local team here. Sure, we use like lots of AI and robots under the hood to make the tech as amazing as it needs to be, so you get a great experience. But above that, there's a great team of people that sit in Melbourne. And yeah, Jason, you've had that experience firsthand when you were looking to purchase property. We call you, we speak to you, and we make sure that you've got everything you need and you're comfortable with it.
And to be honest, I was pretty blown away and pretty impressed by it. Like, I mean, I'm a fan of innovation and technology and automation. So any of that stuff, like the initial text message I got and the way it kind of flowed me through, but I was pleasantly surprised by the human intervention of just a check-in call saying g'day to learn about me and my journey too, which I think we can lose sight of that in this new age technology focused world, that there is still a human element. There's empathy, there's decision making, there's feeling and emotion that, you know, punching things into a computer system doesn't necessarily translate that through to talking to a human to go, this is what I need, this is what I want, actually being steered in the right direction. So yeah, just an early kudos to you and the team for adding that in rather than trying to go totally no human involvement. I think that's been a brilliant step.
Thanks, mate. That's great. That's great feedback. I mean, at the end of the day, we sort of recognize that it's property. Most people only buy and sell once or twice in their lifetime if they're lucky. And it is a very emotional experience. And it means a lot. It means a lot. It's probably the most important financial decision you'll make. So there needs to be that human element attached.
So, and Jace, you could probably chime in here too. So that we talk through a vendor's experience, but from a buyer's experience, because a lot of our listeners out there and a good chunk of the market, particularly at the moment, it's a pretty buoyant market from a buyer's point of view. If I'm a buyer, why am I going to PropApp? Am I going there to use it as a replacement for realestate.com? Are you keeping me updated? What's actually happening there?
Yeah, so the buyer product, we're really proud of what we're trying to achieve in this one. It's an emerging market, and basically we're doing the same thing as we did with connecting to experts or the best on the sales agent side, but this time in an emerging market with buyer's agents. I'm sure many of the people that listen to this podcast will be quite familiar with what a buyer's agent does, but for most Australians, it's actually quite novel. It's an emerging market. So a couple of years ago, 2% of every purchase was done through a buyer's agent. Fast forward to today, it's closer to 7% and it's growing. So in a lot of overseas markets, people buy through buyer's agents. In some countries, it's actually mandated. It's a legal requirement. In Australia, that's not the case. The argument for having a buyer's agent is it's a little bit hard to describe the power disadvantage for a buyer when going and trying to buy a property off a sales agent. With the full knowledge that a sales agent is acting on behalf of the vendor, and we work with many of those great sales agents, who's acting on behalf of the buyer? And in that situation, it's not really an even contest. And so a buyer's agent helps exactly in that fashion. They are effectively bringing to you a level of expertise in dealing with the sale of properties, both on market and obviously pre-market or what describes off market for buyers and acting in their favor.
Yeah, so you're doing exactly the same. You're vetting the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is coming in, and if it's Jace, for example, and he's put in his details as to where he wants to purchase, some buyer's agents will tender for that role, and then Jace will get a good understanding of where he needs to go.
Correct. Yeah.
I love that because I'm actually baffled by what you just said there on the buyer's agent percentage at 7%. To me, it feels like more. Like when we're obviously a mortgage business and we've got a reasonably big mortgage business. So what we see is a pretty good indication of trends, particularly in Melbourne. And I just feel like so much more of our work and our lead flow in the last probably 6 months is coming from buyer's agents. And then we're talking to these businesses and they just want to grow. So I think it's just going to become the norm, to your point earlier, that people use buyer's agents for sure. So, yeah, I love that because, and Jace will can respond here, but Jace is busy enough in his own business to then try and vet a buyer's agent, let alone then go through the process of looking for property. Everyone's time poor and people's time is generally better spent in their business or at work,
Yeah. And it's very true, Nick. I mean, part of, Casey and I on our personal journey to buying a property, one big part of it is that every time we go to think about it or go to action it on the weekend or go looking, there is that energy level that's required, the knowledge and, of where we're going, what we're doing. And if it's just two of us, we have to hold each other accountable. And then most of the time it's like, well, we're too busy doing other things. Something else pops up. So actually engaging a professional, giving them a brief and letting them do what they're paid to do and do a great job at it obviously makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the numbers were very surprising. I think it's probably some more awareness and education and marketing, advertising, to the greater Australian population that if you are buying a property or even an investment property, if it's your first time getting into the investing market, that a buyer's agent isn't a bad thing or, it's not something you should steer away from using because it might cost you 10 grand or 15 grand, when a lot of the time the perceived value of that is that if you get the property at the right price, you're going to get that back in value in equity that you've saved or that you're going to make by buying in the right area at the right time by somebody's knowledge. So yeah, very surprised by that too. And very good one to bring up to discuss.
I was speaking to a customer yesterday, with regard to timing and the fact that it does cost, to your point, 10, 15K to get that service, that value add. And he was sort of saying, well, why would you do that? And I said, well, how long have you been searching for a property for? Because he's been going to auction after auction and being underbidder or, you can imagine that experience. We've all heard plenty of horror stories. And he's been trying to buy property for about, year and a half. Now, depending on where you're trying to buy, the capital growth in that area is going to fast outpace the 15K you're going to spend on the property anyway. So you've really got to look at it from a strategic perspective to understand the true value. And I think it just makes sense in more scenarios than other.
Yeah, even if you bought a $500,000 property, 5% for a year, you've got 25 grand back pretty quickly, or 25 recouped over your 10 or 15 you spent. So yeah, absolute no brainer. And I think that definitely is something that sticks in my head, is just the time to get into market if you are doing it yourself. Decision paralysis. Case and I, the first property we walked into all those years ago starting the search, we went, man, this is awesome. Like, this ticks all the boxes. But we went, oh, but it's the first one we've looked at. Like, surely we can't buy the first one we look at. And we went and saw maybe another 5 or 6 over a couple of weeks, kept on thinking back to that first one, and it had sold just as we kind of made our decision that, yes, that's the one we should go back for, and it was gone. And to this day, we've still been devastated about it the whole time. We have to drive past it every week, basically, when we go to a friend's house on a Wednesday night for an ice bath. And yeah, it still sits there. So yeah, I mean, to those who think, should I use a buyer's agent? Should I, jump on and use an app like Prop App? I mean, this is the examples of anything that can help you get to that decision and make an informed decision faster and start to present you properties that are what you're after. I think it makes absolutely perfect sense.
I think the other important thing to note too with buyer's agents is there is a lot of properties that don't hit the market, particularly in that middle and upper level, like the family home market, properties that are that are high in demand. A lot of the times we have clients transact with properties that weren't even listed. So you actually will find you'll get access to more properties as well at the same time. So yeah, I think it's just going to become the done thing, particularly for certain price brackets, for sure. Obviously, there's a bit of thought that's gone into this, but yourself and your business partner Zach are the co-founders. Talk us through the aha moment where you went, you know what? Holy shit, we've got an idea here, and this could really change the game. Was there something that happened? Were you going through the process yourself? Talk us through, how'd you come up with the idea?
Zach was at the time, and we were chatting, and I've been, my background's tech, so when he and I were speaking about his experience and his journey trying to sell property and get access to a great agent, find out the information, the experience that we currently offer, I was kind of like pretty critical, or like I just didn't believe it fundamentally. Like I was like, nah, surely that's got to be a thing already. I mean, REA and Domain are massive. Surely this is an experience you can just get access to right now. And my background, again, is not in property, and most of the tech that I've done has been in banking and finance. So I just assumed that it existed. And so, yeah, when I realized that it didn't, that was it. It was kind of like, that was the moment where we said, well, why wouldn't it? And then we did the usual thing. You test, we bootstrapped it ourselves. So we didn't seek funding, and we sort of just went out ourselves and did lots of testing to make sure that it was not just us saying that it was a good idea. And that was kind of it.
What's the timeline from that idea inception or the aha moment that Nick talked about? What's the timeline between then and now? How long has it taken? And was there any moments where you thought, this is too hard, it can't be done? Or, just take us through a bit of the mindset of the startup journey and some of the challenges you might have come up against.
Yeah, and I'll be completely, Nick, you know me for a little while now. I'll be 100% transparent. I feel like in the startup space, you have those moments all the time, no matter how good you're going. So, I could tell you right now, whilst we're having some amazing experiences, I'd be lying if I said it's all smooth sailing, and you still have those questions all the time, right? Because that's just the nature of the startup journey. That's why not many people do it, and that's why not many of them that do it come off. That being said, to answer your first question, we from the time we had the idea, we sort of went through that phase where we tested it, validated that it resonated with enough people, and we sort of got our first release out within, I'd say, 6 to 9 months. That's obviously crawling through the fact that we bootstrapped it ourselves. Could you go faster? Possibly. Would you want to go faster? Maybe not. Maybe not, because there's a lot of pitfalls in that process as well. So yeah, about 9 months to our first release, and then where are we now? We're about two to 2.5 years in. So
doesn't matter if you're a startup or established. You never stop questioning.
Yeah,
like we still have those moments every second day. 17 years in.
I was thinking the same thing. So say, for Prop App, what do you envision is the big picture, the mission, the vision? Is there a kind of a target in the short to medium or long term of how many people you want to help, how big you want to get? Like, is there a bit of a goal?
I try to keep it pretty simple. I think we just want to help as many people as we can. I mean, that sounds a bit cliched, but I have conversation. So the classic person that we help, for example, is the first home seller, people that haven't sold a property before, or potentially the first home buyer. But then, having said that, a lot of people, like in the previous generation, have owned their home and they're sort of in their 60s, 70s looking to downsize, and that is their first home sale. So our personas are unusual in that sense. We've got to appeal to people that are of different age brackets, still doing the first time sell and still doing the first time buy, unusually. So we just want to honestly just help as many people as we can, and provide an alternative to just jumping on, the portals and jumping in the market, which is already crowded and contested. That's pretty much our ambition.
Yeah, I'm picturing grandkids or kids getting a call from their elderly parents saying, I'm on this app, I'm trying to sell my property. Can you come around and help? And someone's sitting there going, Nan, you can't sell your property on an app. Don't do that. And not understanding that this is something that now exists. So as you come up with the idea, you start to develop it, do you start to identify that there's something in the market that was trying to do this? Did something like this exist? Is there something worldwide that you kind of looked at and were able to kind of study to replicate from a competition or competitor's point of view? Or is it basically that unique that there wasn't anything you could really look at to benchmark or, compare against?
There's plenty of comparison sites, and it's kind of shit in, shit out. So you sort of, you can jump online, you can have your data mined by them with no security applied whatsoever. And then all of a sudden you'll get tons of phone calls come back your way. So there's that experience, and no worries. And then beyond that, there's the overseas experience. They have a little bit of a different scenario where the companies that are doing something of this nature are effectively hard negotiating all the rates of all the agents that they onboard to the platform. We didn't think that in Australia that was a good idea. And certainly with regards to people that are using the platform, it's not the case that our customers are going for the agents on the selling side that have the lowest rates and the lowest fees. That's not the way that the data leads us. So we didn't think that was suitable for our environment, and so we haven't pursued that. But there are examples out there that are that operate in other countries as well.
And if I'm thinking the competitor for you here that comes to mind is probably Rate My Agent, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but all that really does is give the agent a rating via some kind of almost like a Google review where you can go on and look at what they've sold and the reviews, but it doesn't necessarily, there's no connection to your transaction, right? So it's almost like checking a business and looking at their Google reviews online. That's what Rate My Agent does, if I'm correct, but yours goes a step further.
Look, I mean, they've built a good bit. I can't knock them for the business they've built, and they've got plenty of adoption countrywide. It's not our business model, so far be it from me to sort of throw stones. But yeah, I mean, there's questions to look at on that one as well.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I went down that path was, anyone who's thinking about, okay, geez, do I use Prop App or should I use Prop App? It's really anyone that would be, going to something like Rate My Agent can then divert to you guys, and there's no cost to the user, right? The cost is to the agent to be subscribed to your platform and have the opportunity to use your platform and the opportunity to quote on products.
Yep.
But a vendor or a purchaser doesn't actually pay anything.
No,
is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. We're pretty keen from day one not to, like, this experience should be a value add for all customers. Yep.
How are you finding that people are hearing about Prop App?
So lots of word of mouth, which you need in whenever you're sort of a small business and starting up. So thank you to everyone for that. And we've launched a pretty adventurous, I'll use that word, social media strategy. We really wanted to make property something that was worth stopping to scroll for. So we've got a bunch of very creative people, that's not me, who in-house, just produce some amazing content. And it's stuff that you want to watch. It's educational, but it's lighthearted. And it encourages you to learn a bit about the property process from afar, and then as you get a bit deeper into the process, you sort of get a bit more into sort of the ins and outs of the way that it all works. So yeah, that's been it, and some great partnerships, of course.
Yeah, I must admit, when I saw the Instagram or the reel or whatever, which was the partnership with Innovate, I was like, oh, come on, this is pretty good. Like, Nick was in there and you had the logos and the headings and titles and everything. I'm like, this is cool. This is fun. Like, it didn't look, and it wasn't overly produced, but at the same time, it was very slick and professional, which I kind of liked. And obviously, Nick as a male model on any advertisement he does makes things look pretty good.
You said it.
Full transparency, when that video came out, I shot it straight to our GM and I said, why aren't we doing this kind of stuff on our social media? So, mate, it does look really good. It's actually made us rethink how we're presenting ourselves on social media and marketing in general. So, hopefully it yields the results you're looking for. Obviously, you're pretty new as far as a product goes, but you've got data flowing in, whether they be vendors or properties. Anything that's surprising you on what you're seeing come in just in the general real estate market or type of client, or is there anything that the data's telling you that's interesting since you've kicked off?
I wasn't expecting as many people in Melbourne to be buying outside of Melbourne initially through the service. I thought it would be more of a localized data set that we would be operating in, and I kind of mean that more on the buyer side than the sell side, which is interesting. People looking to buy outside of Melbourne, but from Melbourne. I guess that makes sense when you boil it down. Like, if you're not coming to us for the buy, how do you purchase property outside of a network you haven't got access to? So that kind of makes sense. I think the fees was another one. We had a hypothesis that people would probably choose some of the lower fees for our customer base. That's not the case either. People are far more motivated by performance. They want agents that have a proven record that they can relate to, that they'll work well with. I think those are probably the two interesting points we've observed so far.
That's such a great correlation, right, around the percentage fee you pay for performance based on getting a deal or paying the lowest amount. And I remember a younger me, when selling a property, I was that person who was like, oh, X percent, I'm not going to pay that. The house is going to sell itself anyway, rah-de-rah. And now with experience and, working more around these kind of industries and professionals, I can go, oh, hang on a minute. Like the awareness around a good operator with a good brand, with a good presence in the market can command a more premium price than the house would have just sold itself anyway. And look, I'm sure there are some hot markets where a property might just sell itself. But again, there's a time and a place where paying the right value or the right amount for performance makes a big difference. So that was very well said, mate.
What's next, mate? Obviously, you've started with vendors, you've got the buyers, agents now coming through, or that's the phase 2, maybe you'd call it. Just looking at who you're bringing on from an agent point of view. Like I've got a pretty good understanding of who's who in Melbourne. You're signing up plenty of agents onto the system, which is fantastic because if you're a vendor, you want to make sure the best agents are on there. And I can see the people you're signing up, and they are top agents in Melbourne. What's next for you guys? Like, what are you focusing on at the moment? Is there anything, without telling us too much, that you can't?
Oh, there's a couple of obvious things. I think this, Nick. I grew up in Sydney the first 23 years of my life, so we're looking to go back to my old stomping ground and leverage the network we've got there on the selling side. So that's a big focus for us to extend what's working in Melbourne, but into other parts of Australia. And beyond that, there is a very exciting opportunity. We don't want to be a listings portal. We exist to be an alternative to that, which means we don't just want to have everyone jump on and see all the listings. However, we are doing something pretty cool and exciting. I'll say related to that space. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler away. So when you jump on the app, you'll be able to see some pretty cool content soon in and around that space, but it won't be listings as you know it. I'm going to shut up there before I get in trouble.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I want to ask you a question, maybe not quite related, but obviously we know from a listings platform point of view, REA is the dominant force. Realestate.com, everyone's got that app, including me. I'm one of those people. We know that Domain is a competitor. I don't even have the Domain app. Don't ask me why, I just don't. And I think a lot of people would have the same answer. Domain, I believe, has just been bought out by a big American business. So it'd be interesting to see there what happens with Domain. But from what I understand too, REA has just significantly increased their marketing fees. And those marketing fees get passed on to the vendor, not the agent. So to have your property listed on a platform like REA.com, I'm going through the process now of selling a couple of investment properties because I need to buy a new house. I need to get on your app. And I think the last one, the marketing fee was $4,500. And that was to list my property on REA.com. So that doesn't include the agent. It just includes the listing on REA. And that's a fee out of my pocket as the vendor. So do you see what you're doing? In any way can we disrupt that? Because it is getting out of hand, and you've only got to look at REA's, for anyone that's interested, have a look at REA's numbers. They're a publicly listed business, so it's out there, and they are making cash on cash on cash on cash. They're buying everyone because they've got so much money they don't know what to do with it. They want to buy the mortgage market at the same time. So do you think there's, obviously initiatives like what you're doing, is there any chance that some market share can be taken away there purely just to get the fees down to market your property or to list your property on a listing platform? $4,500 seems crazy, given how easy it is now to access data, to take photos. I would suggest REA's efforts to list a property is probably gone backwards while their fees continue to go up. So probably more of a holistic industry tech question, but I think a lot of people would be thinking it because when they go to sell their property, they think about the agent fee. I don't think they think about the fact that REA is going to want a significant amount of money for them to list it there.
Yeah, I mean, as weird as this might sound, your story is a good story. I know someone recently whose marketing fees were $15,000, and then I said, "Oh, but that includes things like styling and God knows what else was chucked in." And they said, "No, that's on top." And I said, "Really? Okay." I kind of left it there because I didn't want to, that was kind of the end of that discussion. But yeah, it's getting out of control. And
it goes by the value, yeah? Is that right?
I don't know how. This wasn't a transaction done through PropApp, so I don't actually know the ins and outs of how that agent did that. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty blown away by that example. So to come back to your question, yes, there absolutely is. It doesn't cost $15,000 or $5,000 to get an audience to view your property, particularly when most of the audience that's coming to buy your property tends to be local. The data all supports that. So you're putting on an app that needs it. I mean, REA needs that, right? That's their business model, is eyeballs on a property. So there's certainly that, and the feedback from the agency is consistent. That year on year they're being asked to increase their fees, and they obviously pass that on. That's the nature of all service providers. You can't wear all the fees. Some of it you can, but some of it you can't. So yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for us to do something in that space. And I'll just say we are, and watch that space, because we are doing something very cool. So yeah.
I love it. That's super exciting, especially as you're now ingrained in this space or living and breathing it every day. You're seeing more of the problems or more of the challenges for all of the different parties that are involved. So love the mindset.
It just doesn't cost that much to be able to produce content about a property and broadcast that in an appealing way to an audience. It just doesn't in 2025. So I won't go too much further than that, but it just doesn't. It's just not the way of the world anymore.
I would recommend that if you love a good Instagram page to follow with some great videos, go and have a look at propapp.au. Mate, Joel, anywhere else we should find you, contact you if anyone's interested? Obviously, downloading the Prop app from their, Google Store, App Store is one thing, but can anyone reach out or get in contact with you if they need to? Where can we find your details or you?
Absolutely. I believe my details on the website. If not, there's a bunch of forms on the site. You can press it. I man that with Zach, our business partner, so we'll always see it. And I mean, happy to have a conversation or a coffee. We're still local. We're still keen to connect face to face. So whatever helps.
Awesome, mate. Well, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you sharing the journey of PropApp so far. It's definitely been a great lesson for us to learn what's happened behind the scenes and to learn more about the market. Great for me to get a phone call from you earlier in the week. So I appreciate that, mate. Look forward to continuing the journey myself into buying a property on PropApp, and excited then to be synced up with the Innovate team that are doing amazing things as well. If you've listened so far, please like, subscribe, share, tell a friend about the Numbers Game podcast. We love having you listen to our show. Until next time.
When it's broke, fix it. And that's what PropApp are doing. Game over.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The conversations are of a general nature and do not qualify as financial or tax advice. We recommend before you make any financial decisions, you consult a licensed professional. Individuals on the podcast may hold positions in the companies discussed.